But we've been told that the detectives think that marijuana was being dealed, and my son was meeting there, and either they tried to rob him or they did rob him.
The following story is based on real-life criminal cases. Some names, details, and events have been altered for privacy and dramatic purposes. While every effort has been made to ensure accuracy, certain information may not be factually verified. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. Some of these cases remain unsolved to this day.
The murder of Randon Lee, the TikTok star's son whose death shattered a community. It began like any other summer night in Alabama. Humid air, the hum of traffic, and a quiet routine of people preparing for another day. But for 18-year-old Randon Lee, that night would be his last. What unfolded at a gas station in Pritchard, Alabama, was a tragedy that would not only claim the life of a young man, but also leave an entire community and his family grappling for answers. Randon Lee was the son of Ophelia Nichols, a woman millions of people know as Mama Tot on TikTok. With her warm personality, southern charm, and words of encouragement, she had built a massive following, using her platform to spread kindness and compassion. But on June 24th, 2022, just one day before Randon's 19th birthday, her world shattered. Before we continue, please do not forget to like and subscribe to Murder Mistress. Your support helps us continue bringing you stories that seek truth, uncover injustice. These cases are not just and give voice to the victims, their lives, no longer families, and futures torn apart. Every like, share, and comment helps bring awareness to the people behind these stories and the lessons that must be learned. According to investigators, the tragedy began unfolding around 7:45 p.m. at a gas station on St. Stephen's Road. Surveillance footage from that night captured Randon pulling up in his vehicle, unaware that his life was about to end in an instant. Within moments of his arrival, another car, a dark-colored sedan, pulled alongside him. What happened next would send shockwaves across Alabama. Gunfire erupted. Witnesses recalled hearing a series of loud pops before seeing Randon's vehicle suddenly accelerate and crash into the side of the gas station. By the time first responders arrived, it was too late. Randon had been shot in the back. His injuries were fatal. He was pronounced dead at the scene. In the hours that followed, law enforcement scrambled to understand what had happened. Initial reports described the incident as a possible robbery gone wrong, but as detectives began piecing together the evidence, a much more complex story emerged, one that would intertwine.
Which we now know is Randon Lee, drove across St. Stephen's Road and ended up at the Energizer gas station.
Drug deals, hidden struggles, and unanswered questions about trust and betrayal. Detectives with the Pritchard Police Department soon identified a suspect, a 20-year-old man named Reuben Gully. Investigators alleged that Gully and Randon had been communicating prior to the shooting and that the meeting at the gas station was not random. It was arranged. Authorities said that Randon had gone there to sell marijuana, a fact that his family and the public would not learn until later. This revelation complicated the narrative surrounding Randon's death. The image of a beloved TikTok influencer's son being murdered was already devastating. But learning that Randon had been secretly selling marijuana to make money added layers of grief, confusion, and disbelief for his mother and followers. For Ophelia Nichols, the pain of losing her child was unimaginable, but so was the discovery of the hidden life he had been living. The investigation continued for weeks as detectives built their case. Witness statements, phone records, and security footage pointed toward Gully as the prime suspect. Authorities claimed that he was one of Randon's buyers and that something had gone wrong during their transaction. Whether it was a dispute over money, product, or trust remains unclear, but what is certain is that moments after the exchange began, Gully allegedly opened fire. It took several weeks for police to locate and arrest Gully. When he was finally taken into custody, he faced charges of murder in connection with Randon's death. The arrest provided a small measure of relief to the grieving family, but the legal process that followed would prove to be anything but simple. As months turned into years, the case became mired in complications. Gully maintained his innocence, and his defense team began challenging aspects of the investigation. They questioned the integrity of certain police procedures and raised concerns about evidence handling. Then, another development rocked the case even further. A key investigator involved in the Randon Lee homicide investigation was convicted of perjury in an unrelated case. This revelation cast a shadow over the prosecution's case. Legal analysts noted that any testimony or evidence tied to that investigator could now be scrutinized or even discredited in court. The defense quickly seized upon this, arguing that their client could not receive a fair trial if the state's evidence relied on a witness with a record of dishonesty. Despite these challenges, prosecutors continued to push forward. They offered Gully a plea deal, details of which have not been publicly disclosed, but after careful deliberation, Gully refused. Instead, he chose to take his chances at trial. It was a bold move that set the stage for what promises to be one of the most closely watched criminal trials in the state. For Ophelia Nichols, the ordeal has been a heartbreaking journey of grief and advocacy. In the days following Randon's death, she turned to her TikTok community not for fame, but for help, pleading for anyone with information about her son's killer to come forward. Her pain resonated deeply with millions of viewers who had come to see her as a source of hope and positivity. In one emotional post, she said, "Somebody knows who did this to my child. Somebody knows, and I am begging you to come forward." Her plea went viral, sparking widespread media coverage and drawing national attention to Randon's case. For many, the story highlighted the harsh realities that social media can often conceal. How even families who appear joyful and full of love online can be facing unimaginable struggles behind the scenes. As the trial approaches, both sides are preparing for a legal battle that could determine the rest of Gully's life. Prosecutors argue that this was a clear case of premeditated murder, pointing to evidence that Gully arranged the meeting and brought a firearm. The defense, on the other hand, may argue that the shooting was unplanned or even accidental. With the credibility of law enforcement now under question, the outcome could hinge on how the jury interprets the available evidence. Meanwhile, the public continues to wrestle with the complexity of this tragedy. Randon's death serves as a grim reminder of how quickly youthful decisions and hidden struggles can lead to devastating consequences. Friend described him as kind, funny, and full of life, a young man who loved his family deeply. But like many teenagers, he was also navigating challenges, making choices that would tragically lead him into danger. In interviews, Ophelia Nichols has spoken candidly about her grief and her mission to prevent other parents from enduring the same pain. She has used her platform to advocate for open conversations about mental health, substance use, and the dangers that can come from secrecy and peer pressure. Her message is one of compassion, not condemnation, and her strength in the face of loss has inspired millions. Through